Okay, so in this video, we are going to discuss now on how are we going to work with our API. Okay, so we're going to still get first the flow to our database, because what is very important is how are we going to communicate with the API. Okay, so first of all, where should be our API located? So usually the API is actually hosted in the internet. Okay, so in our case, in our discussion here, in our all throughout the series, our API will reside in our local host. Okay, so what I did here is actually I have the SAMP server, so I have defined an API, the API in Flutter slash API. Okay, so that would be my API endpoint. Okay, so that would be the location of our API or the PHP files. Okay, and we are going to have web and mobile. In our case, I'm actually using here an emulator for the web. Okay, so again, this is located in our local host. It is actually an Apache server. Then we are going to run our client on our web. Okay. So I have here a sample app, okay, that contains a text and a button. So what will happen is that if ever I'm going to click on get data, it is going to retrieve or it's going to fetch data from the local host or from the web server. Okay, so or from the API. Okay, so that would be our a very basic application of an API. Okay, so we have here our code. So what would be the very first thing that we are going to do? So we're going to use a package that is going to let our app to access the internet. Okay, because take note, the API resides in our internet. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go to our pubspec.yaml. Then you are going to add the package HTTP. Or actually, you could just, so that you could get the latest version of the HTTP, you're just going to have the command flutter pub add HTTP. Okay, so whatever would be the version of the HTTP package on pub.dev, that would be then the dependency that is going to be installed into your application. Okay, so after you have saved or added the HTTP package, so you are going to issue the command flutter pub get, or actually just have this button here. Okay, this is going to refresh or download all dependencies. Okay, so after you have added the dependency, next is you are going to add or import our package. Okay, package http as HTTP, because we are going to use the HTTP name into our application. Okay, so that's the preliminary steps that you are going to undertake. You are going to add in pubspec.yaml the dependency for the HTTP package that is going to be used for accessing the internet, and then you are going to import HTTP package as HTTP. Okay, so first of all, we are going to create our HTTP. Our API. So we're going to have a very simple API here, okay, in PHP. By the way, I have here a header so that we could avoid the error for cross-axis origin, the course error. Okay, so you must have this header into our API, into our PHP file. Okay, so this means it allows all, okay, all applications that is going to communicate or contact with this API. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to have I'm going to return a response in the form of a text, okay, that is going to display hello API world. Okay. By the way, I have created here again. The file name is hello underscore API.php inside my API folder. And this API is just going to return a text that says hello API world. Okay. So this is for my PHP or for my API. Then for my Flutter, okay, in our app, so we have it here. So okay, so we have here our message from API here. So it is actually a placeholder, a text widget, a placeholder for the message that is going to be returned from the API. So we have here our text, okay, with a variable named message with message from API string. Okay, then we have our button. We have here get data. Then this button is going to provide us for the method that is going to call then our API. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create let's say a void method, void let's say get let's say get message get message from API. Okay. Okay, so what are we going to do first? Like now, we are going to use now our HTTP, but later on. So first of all, we are going to specify our URL or the endpoint. This is what they call as the endpoint. Where is the location of, or what is the API endpoint that we are going to deal with? Okay, so HTTP, so it is actually located on localhost /flutter/API. Then the file name is we have, I forget the file name, so we have here hello underscore API.php. Okay, so hello underscore API.php, then semicolon. Okay, so next, okay, so I'm not going to include first any try catch application. We're just going to go with the commands. Okay, so first is we're going to have, we are going to define here the response. Okay, it's equal to HTTP. Okay, so taking that again, I just would like to reiterate. So we have the different methods on how are we going to contact a file or a site in our in the internet. It could be get, post, delete, and put. Okay, so since we are just retrieving now or something or a message or data from the internet or from our API, so we're going to use get. Okay, so we're going to have http.get, then we are going to convert, okay, the URL into a URI, then our URL. Okay, so this command here, a very simple, a basic command. Okay, it is now going to contact this URL, okay, and whatever, as of now, actually we have no data. There is no data that we are passing into our API, but we are expecting here for a response from our API. Okay, And then later on, once the reply or the response has been returned, we are going to display it here. Okay, so yeah, there are response. Then we are going to have a set state. No, we are going to validate. Actually, there is a validation if we are going to validate if response, the status code is equal to 200. Okay, meaning there are no error. I hope you can still remember we have the 404 that's not found. We have the 500 server error and so on. So when you say 200, meaning that is there is no error. Okay, so response, then we are going to have an error. Okay, it is our now status code is response. So what I'm going to do here is we are going to have, by the way, we have this what we call as future. Okay, so when you say future, that means if ever you are still familiar with JavaScript, that is what in JavaScript it is the promise. Okay, so when you say promise or future, it is going to take some time before a value could be returned into our response. Okay, so that's why here in Flutter, that data or that type of data is called future. Okay, take note, it is a future. Okay, so if ever it is a future, we are going to have, just like with our JavaScript, we're going to use async await commands. Okay, so we have here await. So it is an async. Await is actually, or get is actually an asynchronous procedure. So therefore, we still have to wait for some time, okay, before a value could be returned. Okay, again, response is actually a future. By the way, so that we are going to have HTTP that so that we are going to avoid although var could infer actually a response, it is going to tell them, or our Flutter knows automatically what a response is, but it would be better if ever that we're going to define, okay, the data type for our response. Okay, so as you can see, the error has been removed. Okay, so if ever there is no error, okay, if this endpoint has been contacted, so therefore we are going to change what is being displayed here by using now our set state, and our message is equal to response dot body. Okay, the body contains the response, okay, in the form, as you can see here, string. Okay, string body. The data type for the body is we have string, and in our case here, it is just actually going to return whatever. Okay, in our case, I think that was hello. Okay, hello world. Okay, so else, meaning if ever it was not contacted, so therefore we are going to have, okay, still we're going to have a set state message is equal to response. We're going to give the status code, whatever would be the status code, then plus the reason, or whatever would be the error. Response that reason phrase. Okay, whatever, if ever there is an error. Okay, let us try first this one here. Get message from API that is going to be executed or called when the button is click. Okay, click. So we have here hello API world. Okay, so where does that message came from? It is actually from here. Okay, hello API world from the internet. Okay, so I just added something on the return value. Then I'm going to go back here and click again. So we have hello API world from the internet. Okay, so with this, meaning we have successfully contacted our API through a request. Then we have also successfully retrieved the data returned in the form of a response. In our case, it is just actually a hello, a string that says hello world. Okay. So next is, how about if ever we are going to send data into our API. Okay. Get data. Okay. So let us say the name. We are just going to ask the user for a name. Okay. So how are we in our PHP? How are we going to extract something from the URL? Okay. So we are going to assign a variable here. Name is equal to, then the super global get. Then we have name. Okay. So what I'm doing here is I am trying actually to retrieve or extract the data being passed into this API in the form of the super global get. Okay, the parameter name there is we have name. Let's say we're going to add some more. We're going to have address is equal to get address. Then we are going to have here hello name you are from address. Okay, so very just as simple as it is. Okay, anyway, what we're trying to do here is how are we going to pass data into our API, retrieve those data being passed, then or process the data being passed, then return something that contains the name and the address. In our case, the name and the address. Okay, so save. Okay, how about in our Flutter? Okay. So here we have just contacted our API without passing any data. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pass a data. Okay, so I'm going to define here the name and the address. I'm going to create here a final map, okay, of string. I'm just going to have dynamic. Then I'm going to call it query parameter is equal to, okay, so we have name, let us say Donald, and we have address, and our address is Disneyland. Okay, so these are the data that we are going to pass into our API. In a real application, it could be a text field so that the user can input the name and the address. But in our case, we have a map that contains name and address. Okay, then how are we going to incorporate this query parameter into our here? Let's take note on line 70. This is now the command that is going to submit or pass our request. Okay, so what we're going to do here actually is just to add get no Okay, so we have here dot replace. Okay, then we are going to have the query parameters. Then we have query params. Get, then we have here dot replace. That is going to actually replace because okay, I'm going to have it here so that you could fully understand. Localhost slash Flutter slash API slash hello API dot PHP. Then we're going to have here our parameter. Okay, then name equals Donald. Then we have address is equal to US of A. Okay, so I want you to take note of this. This is what we call as our query parameter. Okay, so as you can see, it is like hello Donald, you are from USA, because the value for the name is we have Donald and the value for the address is we have USA. So how are we going to duplicate this one here, this parameter, with our Flutter code? So by using now our replace. Okay, at the end it is going to replace the parameters with whatever would be our query parameter. Okay, save, then reload. Okay, as I'm going to click in here, what we're going to expect is we are going to have a hello Donald Duck from Disneyland. Click, so we have there hello Donald Duck, you are from Disneyland. Okay, so this proves that this data here has been submitted or passed into our API and then returned, okay, through our response. Okay, so that's how we're going to pass using get. Okay, next is we're going to have the post, but as of now we're just going to have first the get. That's how are we going to use get with parameters. Okay, so actually to complete our code, we are going now. You must have to always have a try catch. Okay, so usually here, so try, then we have our catch. Okay, so that we could always catch our error, because it is always possible that when we are going to contact our API, it is possible that along the way there would be an error. Okay, so that's why I always enclosed our code here with try catch. Then here we could have, I'm just going to have print error. Save. Okay, or actually in in real application we could have here also a set state. Error. Okay. Okay, so that's all for today, and I'll see you on the next video.